On an early summer morning in Boston, Massachusetts, the sunrise streaming through Caroline Murphy's apartment window cast a bright light into her design studio. Caroline used a room in her luxury condominium as both home and workspace, where she ran her graphic design firm, Creative Vision. Posters of famous brands she had designed adorned the walls as Caroline took a sip of coffee and checked her schedule on her tablet. Today, she had a presentation for a major cosmetics company. She massaged her forehead. She had been troubled by headaches for the past few weeks. "Here it comes again," she whispered. At first, she thought it was just fatigue, but lately the pain had intensified. As she prepared for work, Caroline's cell phone rang, displaying the mom on the screen. She hesitated but answered. "Good morning, Mom." "Caroline." "Finally, you answered." "I've been calling since yesterday." Elizabeth Murphy's voice was tinged with her usual impatience and dissatisfaction. She lived with her husband Richard in an upscale suburban neighborhood outside Boston. "Is something wrong?" Caroline asked concisely. "Ashley's car loan payments are overdue. She's been overusing her credit cards again." Caroline inwardly sighed with frustration. This was the usual content of calls from her mother, either consulting about her sister Ashley's endless money problems or asking, "How's your business doing?" "Mom, Ashley is already 30. Shouldn't she handle this herself?" "My goodness. How cold of you. Since you're successful, isn't it natural for you to help your family?" When had her relationship with her family become like this? Caroline wondered. Since childhood, her mother Elizabeth had always been materialistic, more interested in the income Caroline's talent could generate than the talent itself. Her father Richard, a retired banker, was a shadow in the household, overshadowed by her mother. And then there was her sister Ashley, who had been spoiled by their parents and was obsessed with luxury brands and her social media life. That afternoon, Caroline successfully completed her presentation, but on the way home, she was suddenly struck by dizziness. This wasn't mere fatigue. Something was wrong. The next morning, Caroline made an urgent appointment with her primary physician, Dr. Anderson. After she explained her headaches, dizziness, and occasional nausea, the doctor examined her with a serious expression. "Let's get an MRI just to be safe," Dr. Anderson said quietly. A few days later, Caroline visited the hospital again to hear the results. Upon entering the examination room, she immediately noticed that Dr. Anderson's expression was different than usual. "Ms. Murphy." "Caroline," the doctor continued, carefully choosing her words. "We have your MRI results. A tumor has been found in your brain." Caroline felt frozen. The doctor's words seemed to come from far away. "Would you like to contact your family?" Dr. Anderson's voice brought her consciousness back to reality. "Family," Caroline murmured. She took out her cell phone and opened her family's group chat. With trembling hands, she typed a message. "Everyone, I have something important to tell you. Today, my doctor diagnosed me with a brain tumor. I need treatment urgently. Can anyone come to the hospital?" After pressing the send button, Caroline gripped her smartphone tightly. While waiting for her family's response, anxiety and hope mingled in her heart. The chat notification sounded, and Caroline looked at the screen. It was a reply from her mother. "I'm busy right now. By the way, how much savings do you have?" Caroline stared at the screen again in disbelief. Then, a message from Ashley arrived. "If you don't need your money anymore, can I have it?" There was no response from her father. Tears fell from Caroline's eyes. Dr. Anderson silently placed a hand on her shoulder. In the quiet of the examination room, Caroline firmly gripped her smartphone and silently left the family group chat. And in that moment, she resolved to fight alone. Never again would she rely on family who couldn't recognize her worth. "Doctor, please tell me more about my treatment options," Caroline said, wiping away her tears and straightening her back. "I'm ready to face this on my own." The hallways of Boston General Hospital were always filled with the distinct scent of disinfectant and quiet footsteps. Caroline had just finished her first chemotherapy session and was slowly returning to her room, pressing against the needle mark from the 4. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the window, tinting the clean linen bed with gold. "How was it?" "Must have been tough," said Martha Johnson, emerging from the nurse's station with a kind voice. An African-American woman in her mid-60s, she had over 30 years of experience as the head nurse of the cancer ward. In the 2 weeks since Caroline's admission, Martha had become her emotional support. "It wasn't as bad as I imagined," Caroline smiled weakly. "But I feel tired." Martha supported her arm as they walked together to the bed. "Everyone's anxious about their first treatment. But you're very strong. You'll get through this." Caroline nodded gratefully. "Did you know? Patients fighting illness alone, with no visitors." Martha sat on the edge of Caroline's bed and took her hand. "Sometimes, yes. But you're not alone. We're here for you." Holding back the emotions rising in her throat, Caroline said, "Martha, can I talk about my family?" Martha nodded silently. Caroline began to speak about the day of her diagnosis and her family's cold response. Her voice trembled at times, but she needed to get all the words out. "I've completely cut ties with them. I left the group chat and blocked their phone numbers. Because..." Caroline's voice caught, "Because to them, I was just a wallet." Martha listened quietly without interrupting. "Sometimes, there are things more important than blood ties. The family you choose." Caroline nodded. Martha's words brought a strange comfort. That night, Caroline couldn't sleep. Her body was tired from the treatment's side effects, with headaches and fatigue, but her mind was restless. In the dim light of her hospital room, she took out a sketchbook from the bedside table drawer. Although her work as a designer was temporarily on hold, creative expression was her healing. Caroline picked up a pencil and unconsciously began to draw lines. At first they were random curves, but gradually a form emerged. A woman sitting by a window. Lonely, but with a quiet strength. "Who is this?" Martha asked when she found the sketchbook the next morning. "Maybe it's me," Caroline smiled. "Or who I want to become." "It's lovely," Martha lightly touched her shoulder. "How are you feeling today?" "A little better," Caroline answered. It wasn't a lie. Her physical condition was the same, but her heart felt a bit lighter. Several days passed, and Caroline was getting used to life in the hospital when she was hit by a wave of weakness again. It was a day when the treatment side effects were strong, and she experienced frequent nausea. Lying in bed, she suddenly remembered her family. The chicken soup her mother made when she was bedridden with flu as a child. "There's always next time," her father said when she failed her college entrance exam. Such memories suddenly resurfaced. "What are you thinking about?" Martha asked as she entered the room and saw Caroline lost in thought. "My family," Caroline answered honestly. "I'm beginning to wonder if they were really such terrible people." Martha sat beside her. "Relationships are complex. There are both good and bad memories." Caroline picked up her smartphone. She had blocked her family's contacts, but she should still be able to send messages. After hesitating for a long time, she recreated the family group chat and sent a simple message. "When are you coming to visit me?" After pressing the send button, Caroline felt a tightness in her chest. What was she expecting? They couldn't have changed. Still, in a corner of her heart, she thought that after a month since her diagnosis, her family might have grown concerned about her condition. About 10 minutes later, the first reply came. It was from her mother. "I'm busy right now. By the way, how much savings do you have?" Caroline's hands trembled. Immediately, another reply came. This time from her sister Ashley. "If you don't need your money anymore, can I have it?" Time seemed to stop. Caroline stared at the smartphone screen and noticed the text looked blurry. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. She quietly left the group chat and this time deleted the app entirely. Then she put her smartphone on the bedside table and covered her face with both hands. Her sobs echoing in the room expressed the pain welling up from deep within her heart. "What happened?" Martha rushed into the room and sat beside her. Caroline showed her the message history on the smartphone screen with trembling hands. Martha quietly muttered a curse and embraced Caroline tightly. "They are not my family," Caroline said, wiping away her tears. "I'll never contact them again. I'm erasing them from my life." That night, Caroline fell into a deep sleep for the first time in a while. It wasn't exhaustion from despair, but a serenity that came from a certain resolution and determination. She had cut ties with people who didn't understand her worth and resolved to live the rest of her life for herself. The next morning, when the sunrise streaming through the hospital room window illuminated her face, Caroline felt the beginning of a new day. She picked up her sketchbook and opened a new page. Today, although she was in the same hospital room as yesterday, something was different. About 3 weeks after Caroline's hospitalization, a new patient was brought to the ward. While watching the bed being brought in through the window, she saw an elegant elderly woman with white hair being surrounded by nurses as she entered. Around the old woman, several men in expensive suits were attending to her, giving instructions for everything from preparing the room to meeting with the doctors. "Seems like a VIP," Caroline said when Martha entered the room. "That's Eleanor Winston," Martha answered in a low voice. "The founder of Winston Properties, the real estate mogul. She's a billionaire." Caroline nodded. Winston Properties was known as one of the leading real estate development companies on the East Coast, owning many luxury properties from Boston to New York. "What illness does she have?" "That's private," Martha gently admonished. "But since she's in the same ward as you can figure it out." That afternoon, as Caroline was walking down the hall for rehabilitation, she stopped in front of Eleanor's room. The door was slightly open, and inside, Eleanor was sitting alone on the bed, staring out the window. The entourage that had surrounded her earlier had disappeared. "Hello," Caroline found herself saying. Eleanor turned around and, despite her tired expression, offered a gentle smile. "Well, hello there. I'm sorry to intrude. I'm Caroline Murphy. I'm in the next room." Eleanor Winston, the elderly woman, extended her hand. "Please come in. I was just wishing for someone to talk to." Caroline entered the room and sat in the chair next to Eleanor. She was poised for her 78 years, with a face deeply lined with wrinkles that showed intelligence and kindness. "Are you in treatment too?" Eleanor asked frankly. "Yes, brain tumor," Caroline answered. Normally she would avoid talking about illness, but here, as fellow patients, there was no need to hide. "I see. I have pancreatic cancer. Stage 3, Eleanor said quietly. "The doctors keep talking hopefully, but at my age, I don't have much time left." "Don't say that," Caroline blurted out. "Your treatment's just begun, right?" Eleanor looked a bit surprised at Caroline's frankness, then laughed. "You're right. I shouldn't jump to conclusions." Their conversation gradually moved from illness to other topics. Caroline talked about her graphic design work, and Eleanor shared her long experience in the real estate industry. "It wasn't easy starting a business as a woman alone in the 60s, Eleanor reminisced. "But I had no choice. My husband died early, and I had no children." "That must have taken a lot of courage," Caroline admired. "You too. Starting your own design company." Over the next few days, Caroline and Eleanor began to meet regularly. On days when Caroline felt well, she visited Eleanor's room, and on days when Eleanor was energetic, she came to Caroline's room. The two shared their lives, dreams, and fears. One day, Caroline opened up about her family. The way they had responded when she was diagnosed, and their cold attitude when she contacted them again. "My parents couldn't see my worth," Caroline said quietly. "My sister either. To them, I was just an ATM." Eleanor listened quietly. "Family can sometimes inflict the deepest wounds," she said. "I had similar experiences when I was young." Caroline was surprised. "You too?" "Yes. When I got married, my parents disowned me because my husband's social status was low. We started our business together. Even after he passed away, my parents refused reconciliation." "How did you overcome it?" I created a new family with people who knew my value, Eleanor smiled. Blood ties aren't the only family. There's also the family you choose with your heart. Those words resonated deeply with Caroline. On a quiet afternoon, Eleanor sat on the bed looking at Caroline's sketchbook. She turned the pages, expressing admiration for Caroline's designs. You truly have talent, Eleanor said. These designs are so modern and sophisticated. Thank you, Caroline smiled. Design is my passion. Eleanor was silent for a while, thinking. Caroline, I have a proposal for you. What is it? I don't have children. I have nephews and nieces, but they're all after my fortune, Eleanor said with a serious expression. I've really enjoyed our conversations these past few weeks. I'm impressed by your intelligence, creativity, and strength. Caroline listened silently. If you agree, I would like to legally adopt you as my daughter. Caroline was speechless with surprise. Eleanor, that's... I don't mean to rush you, Eleanor took her hand. Take as much time as you need to think about it. But why me? We've only known each other for a few weeks. Sometimes in a few weeks, bonds can form that couldn't be built in a lifetime, Eleanor answered quietly. I believe you have the ability to continue my business. But more than that, you have the qualities of the daughter I've been looking for. Tears welled up in Caroline's eyes. Eleanor, You don't need to answer right away, Eleanor said gently. Just remember that both of us may not have much time. That night, Caroline lay awake thinking. Eleanor's proposal was unexpected, but it certainly resonated in her heart. She valued her relationship with this elderly woman. Though it was a relationship cultivated in a short time, it was based on a depth of understanding and respect incomparable to that with her biological family. The next morning, Caroline visited Eleanor's room. Eleanor was sitting in a chair by the window, basking in the morning sun. Good morning, Eleanor. Good morning, Caroline. Eleanor turned around. Did you sleep well? Not really, Caroline smiled. I had a lot to think about. Eleanor nodded quietly. I'd like to accept your proposal, Caroline said with determination. Though we've only known each other for a short time, I feel our bond is special. A happy smile spread across Eleanor's face. Really? Yes. You taught me that blood ties aren't the only family, remember? The two embraced tightly. In that moment, the oppressive air of the hospital room seemed to clear instantly. That afternoon, Eleanor's lawyer visited the hospital with the necessary documents. At 35 years old, Caroline began the process of officially becoming Eleanor Winston's adopted daughter. Around the same time, Caroline's treatment was also reaching a turning point. The tumor had begun to shrink, and the doctors reported better than expected response. Look at this, Caroline rushed into Eleanor's room with the MRI results. They say the tumor has shrunk by 20%. Eleanor greeted her with a smile. That's wonderful. We should celebrate. The two discussed future plans while eating ice cream in the hospital cafeteria. When Caroline regained her health, they would start new projects incorporating her design sense into Eleanor's business, and also about a new home to live in together. It was the beginning of a story of a new family that two women found in each other within the confined space of a hospital. 6 months had passed since Caroline became Eleanor's adopted daughter. The tumor had significantly reduced with surgery and chemotherapy, and the doctors were amazed at her recovery. Caroline was recuperating at Eleanor's luxurious Beacon Hill mansion while gradually returning to work. At the breakfast table, Eleanor was reading the newspaper and drinking coffee. Caroline was eating a grapefruit while checking her latest design project on her tablet. Caroline, look at this, Eleanor pointed to the business section of the newspaper. There's an article about Winston Properties' new charitable activities. Caroline read the article. Eleanor had donated $20 million to Boston Children's Hospital to establish a new cancer research center. At the end of the article, it stated, Winston has recently welcomed graphic designer Caroline Murphy as her adopted daughter and revealed that she will be the heir to Winston Properties. Eleanor, it says here about me. Yes, I know, Eleanor smiled. I was asked at the press conference, so I answered honestly. That you are my adopted daughter and will be my business successor. Caroline felt a warmth in her chest. She and Eleanor had built a true mother-daughter relationship over these months. Eleanor highly valued her design talent and had begun incorporating Caroline's ideas into new projects at Winston Properties. I didn't intend to announce it this way, Caroline said. Now my biological family might find out about it. Eleanor reached out and took Caroline's hand. Are you worried about that? No, Caroline shook her head. I've completely cut ties with them. I changed my contact information and moved out of my old apartment. They won't find me. A few days later, Caroline finished a meeting at Winston Properties headquarters and returned to the mansion with Eleanor's driver. Upon entering, the housekeeper Dorothy greeted her with an anxious expression. Ms. Murphy, there are guests waiting for you in the reception room. Guests? Who? They said they were from the Murphy family. Your mother and... Caroline felt her heart leap. My biological family is here? Yes. They strongly requested to see you. Caroline took a deep breath. Where's Eleanor? She's out for a doctor's appointment. She's expected to return in about an hour. Caroline thought for a moment, then nodded. I understand. I'll see them. Opening the door to the reception room, she found Elizabeth, Richard, and Ashley seated there. Her mother wore an expensive dress, her father a suit with a tie. Ashley was dressed in the latest branded clothes and stood up as soon as she saw Caroline. Caroline. Ashley tried to approach but stopped at Caroline's cold expression. Why are you here? Caroline asked calmly. And how did you find me? We saw the newspaper, Elizabeth answered. A fake smile was on her face. You becoming that Eleanor Winston's adopted daughter. I can't believe it. I was surprised, Richard also spoke. Why didn't you tell us? Caroline looked at them coldly. When I was diagnosed with a brain tumor, what did you do for me? A moment of silence filled the room. At that time. I was confused, Elizabeth said as if making excuses. I've been worried about you all along. We tried to contact you many times, Richard lied. But your number had changed. Stop lying, Caroline said quietly. Do you remember the last messages you sent me? When I asked again, when are you coming to visit me? Mom replied, I'm busy right now. By the way, how much savings do you have? Ashley said, if you don't need your money anymore, can I have it? Ashley blushed, Elizabeth cleared her throat, and Richard stared at the floor. But that's in the past, Elizabeth quickly changed her expression. Let's be together again as a family. We sincerely want to celebrate your recovery. Yes, sis, Ashley said tearfully. We truly regret it. We couldn't bear to lose you. Caroline saw through the true intentions behind their words. Greed gleamed in their eyes. It wasn't concern for her, but desire for Eleanor's fortune. I'm not your family anymore, Caroline said quietly but firmly. You abandoned me when I really needed you. Don't pretend to be family now. What are you saying? Elizabeth's voice rose. Just because a famous billionaire adopted you, you're denying blood ties? That's ridiculous, Ashley also raised her voice. You were just lucky. We should have the same rights. Finally, their true feelings were revealed. So it's about money, Caroline smiled sadly. I thought so. Are you planning to monopolize that old woman's money? Elizabeth shouted in anger. What about your family? You should share with us. Get out, Caroline stood up and pressed the intercom button. You're not my family anymore. Caroline, calm down, Richard said anxiously. We just want to talk. The sound of a door opening came from the entrance. Eleanor seemed to have returned home earlier than expected. When she entered the reception room, she understood the situation at a glance. Hello, Eleanor said calmly. You must be Caroline's former family. You, Elizabeth stood up. You stole my daughter. I didn't steal anyone, Eleanor replied with dignity. Caroline made her choice as an adult. When you abandoned her, I was by her side. Two security staff entered the room. The Murphy family is leaving now, Eleanor told them. This isn't over, Elizabeth threatened. We'll contact you through our lawyer. Please do, Eleanor smiled. I have the best legal team. Led by security staff, the three members of the Murphy family were escorted out of the mansion. As the door closed, Caroline exhaled deeply. Are you okay? Eleanor placed a hand on her shoulder. Yes, Caroline nodded. Now I can truly end it. That night, Eleanor and Caroline drank tea by the fireplace, discussing the day's events. They might not give up, Eleanor said. But we're together. I've made my choice, Caroline smiled. My real family. Outside the window, the night view of Boston was beautifully illuminated. In that light, Caroline saw a new beginning. Freed from the bonds of blood relations, she felt true freedom for the first time. Thank you all for coming today, Caroline greeted the people gathered in the large conference room with a confident voice. It was the opening ceremony of the Winston Murphy Cancer Research Center at Boston Children's Hospital. 2 years had passed since her cancer was completely cured. Eleanor was also seated on the platform. She had overcome her illness and was walking a new life path with Caroline. Together they ran Winston Properties, bringing fresh innovation to the industry with real estate projects that incorporated the design sensibilities of the younger generation. Our foundation aims to support cancer patients and their families, Caroline continued. Illness corrodes not only the body, but also the soul. However, with the right support, people can rise again. In the audience were Dr. Anderson, who had been in charge of Caroline's treatment, and head nurse Martha. They had warmly watched over Caroline's recovery and success. After her speech, Caroline held a book signing. Her book, which was both a record of her battle with illness and an inquiry into the true meaning of family, had become a bestseller nationwide. Your book gave me courage, one young woman said. I too overcame cancer with the support of people who weren't blood relatives. Caroline squeezed her hand and said, You are not alone. This was the central message of her book. That evening, a letter arrived at Caroline's office. It was an envelope from a law firm. Inside was a note about her biological family's recent situation. Her mother Elizabeth and father Richard had lost their house mortgage due to Ashley's gambling addiction and were financially ruined. The letter included a request for assistance from Ashley. Caroline thought for a while and consulted with Eleanor. I'll support whatever decision you make, Eleanor said. But keeping hatred will only hurt you. The next day, Caroline sent a letter through her foundation, proposing Ashley's participation in an employment assistance program. She added the message, just giving doesn't change anything. Let's help you become self-reliant. After sending the letter, Caroline was watching the sunset with Eleanor on the terrace of the Beacon Hill mansion. The decision I'm most proud of in my life is welcoming you as my daughter, Eleanor said quietly. Caroline squeezed her hand. And I have never regretted accepting you as my mother. The two looked at the Boston skyline tinged with the sunset and talked about their future. Though they had no blood ties, they had become a true family bound by their souls. Sometimes life brings unexpected developments. Through the trial of illness, Caroline had found her own worth and discovered a family based on true love and respect. Her story continued to give hope to many people. Tomorrow will be another wonderful day, Eleanor said. Yes, with us together, it surely will be, Caroline smiled.